I had to take a break from the project that we're doing because my daughter's car broke down last week, and I've had a week of toing and froing and doing a huge amount of driving, which I hadn't kind of planned on doing, and it's meant that everything that was going to happen last week couldn't happen. So I'm on a mad mission now because we've only got it's Friday today, tomorrow, and then it's Christmas Day. So I've got loads to do. So I thought I'd finish off these draft excluders that I got commissioned, and we'll just go through how to finish it up, and then I will wish you all a very Merry Christmas, because I will stop and hopefully get this edited over the holidays, and then come back next year 2023, come back next year with loads of new things. Yes. So I'm still on my ironing board, I'm still in the living room. The barn is my project for January and February, really, so that I can get working in there, because the light in here is appalling. It's very warm, which is kind of cozy, but it's not ideal for filming in, and the space isn't ideal for filming in either, and it's a real pain to go do close-ups and then away and close-ups and away, and so I'm kind of doing this on the run. So it's like you're sitting in a chair opposite me, and you know, I'll do close-ups as stills, but I'm not going to keep moving the camera because there's nowhere to put the tripod here. In the barn I've got beautiful daylight strip lights that light everything up when I'm working, and it's fantastic, and I had it put in specially for filming, but I can't work in there at the moment. So anyway, draft excluders. So I've pinned up the... Ooh, I'm going to sew myself to the project now. How many times has anybody done that? I've pinned up the side, so basically what I've done is made a big sausage, and I'm just going to stitch that up quickly. Ooh, this is not the ideal top to wear, but it's nowhere near as cold as it was when I was filming last time. We went from -9 to 12 degrees in the space of 24 hours, and all of a sudden the fact that I'm not going to have my radiators done till next week doesn't matter. This is really nice and warm. So I've still got thermals on, but I don't need massive sweaters on now. And the dog doesn't need to be wearing her Christmas jumper. She was so cold last week that I made a Christmas jumper. It was a small sized Christmas jumper that I found in a charity shop. And if you put a sweater on a dog back to front, the neckline works so that I can't explain it, but anyway, it works. And so she's wearing her Christmas sweater with pride while she was sleeping. And cute she looked. And I'm not one to dress dogs up, so don't get me wrong, I'm not a great lover of clothing on dogs. But bless her heart, she was cold. I mean, she's got a double coat on. She has got a double coat. She's got quite a good coat. But it was really chilly. So we were wrapping her up in blankets, and she just loved it. So I thought, oh well, you're a blanket dog. Let's go there and see whether you like it or not. And she loved it. My previous Kelpie, if you put a coat on her of any description at all, she just acted like you tied her up and she couldn't walk. But Rosie was quite happy to go in the garden with her jumper on. She loved it so much. She's a good girl. So I'm just stitching up and making sure that where the denim and the cream grey colours meet, the seams are absolutely straight, so they sit on top of one another. So we turn this sausage inside out, there won't be a discrepancy. That really winds me up. You see it sometimes on cushion edges and things like that, or where they haven't matched the fabric properly. When you're just starting out, it's fine, it happens, but it is something that I do instill into my students. And they get away with it when they begin, but when you're patchworking, you have to pay attention to stuff like that, because there's nothing worse than seams that don't line up. Ooh, that doesn't sound very happy. Ah, I think my bobbins just run out. Bear with me. Right, bobbins full up again. And the next step, so I've just finished that off, and then I've zigzagged down the edges so that any of the very fraying fabrics won't fray any further. So the next step we've got to do is to make the little tab that I'm going to put in one end so that these can be hung up when they're not used, and also the ends. So I measured the whole of the width opened out, and that gives me the measurement that I need for the circumference of the ends. So it ended up as 26 inches. And so what I've done is worked out the circle. You can just draw around a plate if you've got a plate the right size. I happen to have a really old tea plate which was exactly the right size, so I drew around that. And then you cut out 2 circles, so these are going to be either ends. So I've cut out a tab. So all it is, it's just a rectangle of denim, and then I've found my centre point. So you fold it in half, just find your centre, and then you fold the 2 sides in. It makes a nice sturdy strap then, or tab, and then I'm just going to top stitch down the edge, and that, I always forget to put my glasses on, I'm really bad for that, and then I'm sewing thinking, why can't I see? My students laugh at me because I can't see, and they say your glasses are on your head. Oh yeah. We go. I've got a rubbish bag down beside me now, so I haven't got to throw it all over the floor. So that just makes a tab, so that'll just be folded in half, and then that's slotted in one end, so that it's not, I don't want a big one, but it'll just hang on a hook somewhere, or a nail in the wall, on the wall or something. They're not for me, so it'll be whatever the customer wants me to do with them. It's a friend of mine, and they just did an emergency. I've got a draft coming in through my door, and I need to stop the draft. So what I'm now going to do is fit these. So I want the tab to be sandwiched. So you have to turn it downwards, so the tabby bit, the flappy bit, goes inside, and I'm then going to add, actually, shall I do it like that? I think I will, because that will stop me. So what I've done is I'm opening those 2 ends out, so the tab will be flat on that end, and it will give it a little divot there. That means that you're not stitching on a huge amount of fabric, which is what will happen if I do it double. So I'm then going to pin in the tab between the round circle end and the actual body. So when I pin this, I'm pinning outward like that. So I'm doing I'm not pinning along. The reason for that is that because it's circular, you'll end up with lumps and bumps. If you do it like this, it's a little bit stabby when you're working. You do need to be a little bit careful, but it's a lot easier to create your circle. So you keep pinning round like that, and what also you'll find is that as you're going, some of the fabric is a little stretchy and some of the fabric is very stretchy, and the very stretchy bias bits are where you can even out any puckering. So occasionally you'll find that the fabric, as you're stitching, the fabric will kind of run and you'll end up with a bit of a bump and a bit of a pucker. That will happen on the straight edges where it's not on the bias. So on the bias is where fabric is diagonal and there's a lot more stretch. So even though these are stretch jeans, there is a far more of a stretch when you're on a bias. So when you're looking at fabric, for those of you who aren't aware, you have two directions. You have a warp and a weft. So the warp goes up and down. The weft is, if you've got fabric on a roll, the weft is from right to left. So weft, left. If you can remember that, then you remember which way it goes. So you've got a straight thread and a straight thread, and they're woven. If you cut on a bias, the whole thing will stretch. So in the 1920s, dresses that were made in the 1920s were very often bias cut, and you get this beautiful, beautiful movement in the long. If you look at long dresses from the 1920s, it's exquisite. I actually have a couple of vintage dresses that belong to my great aunt, and I have worn them in the past. I don't think I'd fit into them now. But when I was in my 20s and 30s and early 40s, I could get in them. I'm just going to twizzle that round a bit. So we're nearly there. I'm not leaving a gap this end because I'm going to turn through from the other end. So I'm just pinning all of this up. And then, as I said, I'll stitch around and then I can even it out. So you can do a little bit of kind of fabric engineering if you like. The only thing that I will say to watch out for when you're doing things like this is when you're stitching, the underside has a habit of flipping, and so you need to make sure that when you're sewing, you listen, because you can hear it. Your sewing machine will tell you that it's only stitching on one layer. So but it can catch you out if you're not careful. So I've pinned all the way round. So I'm just going to start stitching this up. And this is going to be, it's going to clonk a bit to start with because it's going through the tab layers and the 2 layers of the end and the sides. So you can hear. I have got I'm using jeans needles, denim needles, because they're a lot stronger and a lot sharper. Sometimes I use silk needles. It depends on what I'm sewing, really. Oh, hello. I've got a bit more light. You can tell that's gone late in the afternoon now. So it's about 4 o'clock. Well, it is 4 o'clock. And we might see a bit better. Oh, glasses on. Glasses on. So it's just, I'm just watching it, and you just have to keep a bit of a firm, not a pull because you'll bend your needle, but a bit of a firm pressure on the fabric as you're turning. Just be aware of what's underneath your needle, so that you're not doubling up on anything or you're not singling on anything. You can kind of feel it. You use your finger ahead of the foot you can then feel if the fabric's not behaving itself the way you want it to. So I'm moving the fabric out from underneath it because it will try and fold. So it's a bit fiddly, but it gives you a good finish. Like I said, this finger is my sort of barometer, for want of a better word. It tells me whether I've got the right amount of fabric underneath that foot. And if I can feel anything extra, I can feel a lump or a bump. So it's just about taking your time, paying attention. And when you've got lots of layers to go through, you've got thick fabric, it's really important. It just saves time because then you don't have to unpick stuff that you've done by accident. So always use your fingers if you can. They'll tell you so much when you're stitching. So nearly at the end. And also if you do get a little ridge, so where the fabric's trying to fold, then you can sort of push it out with your finger and just ease it away from the foot. So I've got some projects next year that I'm feeling quite excited about doing. But one of them I've said I'm going to do this a few years running and it just hasn't happened. And I think you start something and life gets in the way. And I've got quite a few projects that I need to finish before I do very much more. But one of the things that I have threatened to do for the last 4 years, I think, is a thing called the 365 project, which is where you take a piece of fabric. It could be a pillowcase, it could be an old tablecloth, it could be something like that. I'm just going to zigzag around the edge now. And you embroider each day something that's happened. And it could be that it's a word, it could be that it's a flower that you saw, it could be a smile, it could be an event, it could be anything. But it's just a 5-minute little embroidered something that reminds you of that day. And I've been threatening to do this for a long time. Well, I have a lot of old pillowcases that belong to my nan. And some of them are starting to show their age a lot more than they need to be. In fact, some of them she made. And they're the under ones with the zip. And they are beginning to look a bit sad. And I was looking at them thinking, I've managed to keep them going for a long, long time. And I love them dearly and they're great. But I've decided that I'm retiring one of them because it has got quite warm. You don't see them because they're underneath your pillowcases, but they are starting to look a bit worse for wear. And so I'm going to do a 365 project on it. So I will probably video it, some of it, as I go. Right, so if I just quickly show you, I'm not going to turn this completely through, but I can show you that when you turn this through, that tab that I stitched in is now there ready to hang it up. Okay, I'm not going to pull it through yet because I've got to put the other end on. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll be ready to turn through and stuff, and then that'll be the end of that project. and then I can edit the video and start on something new. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, I've changed the white balance on my camera as well now, so we're slightly less orange because that light came on and made it worse, I think. So, and the light, it's dark outside now, so so what I've done is just pinned up that last end, and I'm going to whiz around it. I'm leaving a gap. Don't forget to leave gaps for things that you're going to turn through. I remind people, and it's so easily done. You get all carried away and just stitch over the gap. This is where it gets a bit stabby. You have to just watch your hand. So I'm just going to whiz around this one the same way as I did before, and then we'll be ready to turn through. So I've left my gap. I've stitched the end mostly in. So what we're going to do now is make sure that I haven't left any pins in, because that's usually the thing that I think, oh no, I have to pin. No pins. Really, it's important to double check because it's so easy, especially when you've got a lot of different fabric that you're using and you've had to pin all sorts of bits and pieces together. So here is my draft excluder. There's its little tag. That's what it looks like with the grey inserts. I'm actually chuffed to bits with that. I like the way it looks. So what I'm going to do before I do any stuffing is give it a good press. So I shall open it out, press all these seams nice and as flat as they'll go. Obviously they won't go brilliantly. They're, you know, there are lots of different levels, but once it's stuffed, you can do some of it with your fingers and get rid of some dead stray threads and things. But that should be good. And also, can you see what I was saying about making sure that your seams line up, so it gives you a good coherent edge all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and do the pressing, and then we'll stuff it and finish it up. So that's the pressing all done, so it's nice and sharp, and now I'm going to stuff it full of cloud. I have a standing joke in my classes that if they want to stuff anything, I go and get the bag of cloud. So this is compressed K-pop stuffing, and before I stuff, what I generally do is just pull it apart a bit because it clumps otherwise, and then you kind of give it a little bit more air, and then I'm basically going to start stuffing. So I am going to push it all down to one end and build up, because if you start from this end, you are going to end up with clumps. So when you're stuffing big things like this, push it down and just try and keep it as even as possible. So I'm going to do this, and then I'll come back and show you when it's nearly done. So here we are, one giant draft excluder. It's for a very big door, and so I'm nearly there. It's lumps and bumps because it's so big. It's lumps and bumps are there, but as it gets used, they'll disappear. So I'm just finishing up stuffing the far end. It's alright, Rosie, it's not going to get you. Rosie's a bit worried because it's like a massive elephant and it's encroaching on my sofa over there, and she's such a good girl and she's been sleeping all the way through. So I've just woken her up. So I'm just stuffing the right at the end, and again just ease out that cape hook. Baby. Stuff the ends right up until it's nice and solid. Rosie, that's not the best place to go because you're going to knock the camera. Good girl. Good girl. There you go. Doesn't take her much to get back on the sofa. think that's about it, actually. Maybe a little tiny bit more. And then what I'm going to do is just slip stitch. I was going to top stitch it on the machine, but actually I'm not going to now. I'm going to just slip stitch that end shut using, you can call it a ladder stitch, and it just encloses that end. So I'm just going to fold those bits in together, pin them up, and then I'll slip stitch, ladder stitch them, and then that's it, finished. It can go off to its new home tomorrow in time for Christmas. It's missed the really cold weather, but we will definitely be getting more windy weather, and that's basically what this is being made for. It's because there's they discovered that the front door was incredibly drafty and they didn't realise. So now they will have a nice big fat sausage to put in front of it, and hopefully it will just keep all those nasty old drafts out. We've got January and February coming up, and we always get windy weather then, so it's quite timely. Fold that in a bit more actually. There we go. Just pinning up, it's like a massive caterpillar. And there's the last of the pins, so I'm going to stitch that up, and then that'll be it, it'll be done. So there we are, one really lovely big squishy draft excluder that should do the door. It's a big door. I'll put the loop on that end so it'll hang up, and it's done. So I can wind this video up and wish everybody a really Merry Christmas. It's Rosie just getting on the sofa again. And thank you all so much for watching my videos, for subscribing, for following, for commenting. If there's anything you particularly want me to do, please tell me, and if I can, I will. So tomorrow this monster will get delivered to its new home. I will be going around and taking presents around to my friends, and then I will be off on Sunday to spend Christmas with my daughter and her partner Ed, and watch Rosie undo loads and loads of boxes. They've been saving cardboard boxes because she absolutely loves ripping boxes up, and in fact it's a bit of a standing joke that we've been saying she's training Ed because he leaves takeaway things around and boxes and bits and pieces, tissues and what have you, and she's been she goes around their flat, picks them all up, rips them up, brings them in the living room, goes, there you go, I've shredded them for you. And we were going to put presents under the Christmas tree. They've got a beautiful great big real tree up, and then we looked at each other and went, it's probably not the best idea. I think Rosie might open them before we get to Christmas. So what they've been doing over the last month is collecting up all of the cardboard boxes of various sizes, like tea packets and Budweiser packets and all sorts of things. Rosie, what's the matter? Rosie, what's the matter? There's nobody out there, Bubba. There's nobody out there. There isn't. There's no one there. Hello. Yeah, so they've been packing them, collecting them all up, and then we're going to wrap them up, or Lauren's going to wrap them up, put them under the tree, and I don't think we're not going to play. Hang on a minute. This is Rosie's favourite toy. once upon a time it was a crocodile. Now it's just roadkill. But she loves it. She couldn't play when she first arrived. She was frightened of toys, but she's not frightened anymore. So we're going to let her loose on all the cardboard boxes on Christmas Day. And we'll save some for Boxing Day. And just watch her have her first Christmas with us. So it'll be the first time she's had a Christmas with... Oh, she's bringing all her toys out now. Come here. Rosie, come here. Where's your Teddy? Where's Teddy? Go find Teddy. Find him. Go find Teddy. Where's Teddy? Get it. Rosie, get it. That's Croc. Oh. She's hitting the camera. So I think it's time to go because I think I need to go play with my dog. So Merry Christmas everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being with me. I hope you've enjoyed this rather extended video and learned a few bits along the way. And if you want to make a massive draft excluder, now you know how. Take care everyone. See you soon.